Good evening and welcome to a special meeting of Monday, May 25th, 2020. I have with me Councillor David Torgman. I'm the Mayor, Councillor Mitchell Brownstein, Mayor Mitchell Brownstein, Councillor Sidney Benizri, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Oren Sabag, Councillor Dita Burku, Councillor Mike Cohen. We have Councillor Mitch Kajavsky. We have the City Manager, Tanya Baranovich, the Co-City Manager, Jonathan Schechter, Associate City Manager, Nadia DeFuria, and we have Darrell Levine, our Communications Director, on the screen. Before we begin the meeting, we will have a moment of silence to remember all those individuals who have been taken from us, from this virus. My cousin, a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter. Everybody knows somebody who's been touched by this virus, and we will also pray and hope for the recovery of all those that are presently infected. So we'll take that moment of silence. So we're here tonight to talk about, it's a second notice of motion, reading of our notice of motion for our bylaw that we're presenting, dealing with masks and other issues to reduce the transmission of the virus. Our effort as a municipality, as well as a resolution dealing with ways in which we feel individuals should act. And I'm speaking to each one of you as an individual because every level of government's doing their best, whether it's the federal government, the provincial government, or the municipal government. We're all doing our best, but really it comes down to you, each individual. It's your responsibility to do the right thing. And we're passing these bylaws, some that are enforceable under penalty of law and fines, to merchants, to individuals who enter our city buildings, and others that are not enforceable by law or fine, but are strong recommendations based on the health authorities who continue to say, including Premier Legault, and on my call today with Minister Rouleau, she said, we were at a call today with all the mayors, and she said, Mr. Mayors, Miss Mayors, Madame, et Monsieur, please tell your people to wear masks as soon as they leave their homes. They know they need to physically distance, they need to wash their hands, and out of respect for others, everyone should be wearing masks. This is the message that is being sent now because we are all in a situation now where we're being deconfined. We don't want to be stuck back in our homes. We don't want our emergency rooms to be filled again and our IC units to be filled again. We want to be able to play tennis and golf. We want to go swimming. And then there's our seniors. And what do they want? They've been stuck in their home. They don't go shopping for their own groceries. And all they want to do is go for a walk. But they're afraid to go for a walk. This is the type of email that I receive from our seniors. Dear Mayor Brownstein, seniors such as myself want other people to wear masks. Since I returned from Florida and my mandatory 14-day quarantine, which ended mid-April, I have found it difficult, if not impossible, to go out for a walk without constantly trying to avoid people who are not wearing masks. In fact, for most of the time, I'm the only one wearing a mask. As a senior, I'm urged to stay home since I'm among the most vulnerable, but I do have a right to go out on the occasional walk without the constant fear of being exposed to this virus. Is it presumptuous of me to suggest Côte Saint-Luc, with our large senior population, can lead the way in the province by positive messaging from City Hall, communicating the advantages of wearing masks? So that's what this meeting is all about today. It's about maintaining our freedom and our enjoyment of life, and allowing those to play tennis and golf and go swimming, hopefully, but also ensuring that our seniors can go out safely and feel comfortable when they're walking under the underpass or when it's a busy day and there's a lot of people outside, that they'll might not be 6 feet apart, but at least the person's wearing a mask. And for the rest of us, when we go shopping and when we who are allowed the privilege to go into stores, we're going to help businesses by making sure that more customers go shopping and feel comfortable because everybody else is protecting each other by wearing masks. Washing your hands is the most important thing you can do. And that's why I always have my hand sanitizer available. And I have all different kinds of masks. And I have not left my house in Côte Saint-Luc since March 17th without wearing a mask. And you know, I'm doing just fine. So you can do it too, out of respect for other people. Please wash your hands, keep your physical distance, and wear masks. That's what's the meeting about. So merci tout le monde pour être ici aujourd'hui. Le message aujourd'hui, c'est le message qu'ont reçu de la première ministre, de Madame Rouleau, le ministre de la métropole aujourd'hui, sur le téléphone quand on a une réunion. Que tout le monde, chacun, doit faire le travail. Ce n'est pas les gouvernements fédéraux, municipaux ou provinciaux qui peuvent faire le tout. C'est chacun de vous qui doit faire le nécessaire pour être certain qu'on peut avoir un beau été, qu'on peut jouer ensemble et pour nos aînés peuvent marcher dans les rues et vivre une qualité de vie sans avoir la possibilité de quelqu'un qui veut passer le virus sans avoir une couverture sur le visage. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm counting on each one of you because we're doing our thing, but really, it's up to you. So I'm going to go through the question period first, and but before
just a quick point, the chat seems to be disabled on YouTube. I don't know if that could be corrected.
No, there is no chatting during public meetings. That was a mistake last time. I have all the questions received. I have a bunch of questions because I can't keep up. I tried to keep up in previous times, and I can't. If we need when there's a second question period, we'll open up for questions. But in this particular meeting, because there is no second question period, I got all the questions before, and I'm going to answer them now. Okay, special council meeting question periods. Questions. First one, do I have to wear one outside or only inside? What about schools in the fall? So the first question is stores. Yes, you're going to be required to wear them in stores. That's enforceable against the owner of the store, who is going to make sure that everybody who comes into his store wears a mask. And we're going to facilitate that by providing disposable masks, a certain amount of them, to help them get started. In condos and apartment elevators and common areas, the signage is going to be obligatory, and that is enforceable against the owner of the apartment or the condo. But we don't have the police capacity or the public security capacity to enforce that type of requirement against the individual. So what our bylaw is going to do is require the signage to state that you should be wearing your masks in the common areas of apartments, condos, as well as elevators. But it's not under penalty of law. In city buildings, we have, that's our own city building. So we're going to be able to have an individual to do screening when people enter our buildings and ensure that they have a mask to put on. And if not, we'll give them a mask. And there you can receive a fine from a public security officer. It is not under penalty of law outdoors. It's a recommendation. But as I said, the minister, the premier, the health authority for the government of Canada are all telling individuals to wear masks. Does it apply to schools? Our bylaw does not apply to schools. What if I don't want to? In city buildings, you can be ticketed. Elsewhere, you may be refused admittance by the owner, as they are subject to fines. Businesses. Who will enforce this? In terms of the signage requirements, which will include pictograms, this will be enforced by our urban planning inspectors and at city buildings, all of our city buildings. It will be enforced by our public security. Will this be law or a strong recommendation? Well, as I explained, it's law in certain circumstances, such as commerces, which must require the wearing of face covering, and in our city buildings. The legal requirement for condos and apartments is the signage. Who will ensure the merchants are following this? Urban planning. Does the city have the authority to do this in buildings that they do not own, such as shopping centers? Yes, we do. And we received a legal opinion stating that we do have the authority to do what we're doing and more if we wish. Do janitors working in apartments or condos have to wear masks at the same time? They follow the same rules as any individual in a condo or apartment. They'll have the signage there that's required by law, and it will be enforced by the apartment owner or condo owner, not by the city. Do we have to install hand sanitizers at all elevators? The recommendation right now is to have it either at the door on each floor or inside the elevator, because whether you're going to touch the buttons going in or touch the buttons going out, there has to be a place to wash your hands. So it won't necessarily have to be on every floor. It could be inside elevators. There's a long one. I agree there has to be constant awareness regarding the rule regarding requiring apartment buildings to place alcohol dispensers. Is it going to help? Is it going to help? They say the most important thing is washing your hands, more important than even a mask, because you touch your face. And that is the number one thing. That's why I carry hand sanitizer around. But if I didn't have a hand sanitizer with me and there was a place to wash my hands, that's great, whether it's hot water and soap. But if not, so a dispenser will be helpful. Does a face shield qualify as other face coverings, especially for people with asthma? Yes, it does. We made an amendment, and this is the second reading of the draft bylaw. So there's a possibility that more amendments can still be made before next Monday, which is when we will pass the final version, as we are reading all of your comments and suggestions very carefully. Well, having read the bylaw, for the most part, people cooperate. We have supplied 2 per unit. We do not. We cannot. Well, what do we tell our co-owners? So it's a long question. Oh, the condo owners. One of the condo owners writes that there's been difficulty enforcing what they want for people to wear masks. So my answer to them is they have to continue to do their best. They have to do their best, as I spoke to you all today. Signage is important. The pictogram signage that we'll be providing will help. And once the city hopefully has these rules, it will encourage more people. As time goes on, I do believe more people will realize the importance of protecting other members of our community and not just themselves. Who are the medical experts formulating Côte Saint-Luc's policies regarding COVID-19, and why do you feel their advice should override the Quebec Ministère de la Santé? No, it is the Quebec Ministère de la Santé. So recommendations that we are using, and only their recommendations in terms of the steps that we are taking. Washing your hands, wearing masks, and keeping physical distance. Those are the 3 key elements that continue to be repeated by the medical authorities. For those who are medically unable to wear a mask, asthma, autism, what proof do they need to bring to be able to enter a store or medical okay. So first of all, and the second question is, how will they be judged by others not wearing a mask? And how do we stop those who wear a mask from taking advantage of this exception or not wearing one? Okay, so the answer to that is we added in a face shield. So most individuals should be able to wear a face shield, but if there is a medical reason where you can't wear a mask or a face shield, then you should have a medical note explaining why you could not do one or the other. Our recommendation still is to wear masks, as if you wear them properly, and we're going to provide the instructions of how to wear the masks, they are the best source of not passing droplets forward. Although they're creating shields now that, if worn properly, are quite good. They definitely protect you more than a mask, but in terms of protecting others, they're not as good, but if they're long enough below the chin, they also can be very useful. So those were the questions received. I did mention to Councillor Sabag that before we get into the reading of the bylaw, that he just give us a little bit of an update on, but before that, and he will, about what it's like working on the front lines as a nurse. But before I get into that, I just wanted to clarify the new rules that exist that allow 10 people to meet now in gatherings, and it doesn't have to be 3 households. It could be 10 different people, but you're supposed to be physically distanced and wearing masks. That is the recommendation from the DSP. And in terms of the reopening strategy from our city, we're working very hard and diligently to come up with our reopening strategy, and we're having meetings tomorrow all day, and we'll be in the next week giving you a lot of information about how we're planning to reopen our city, although that could be subject to change. We're being cautious, careful, learning from other cities, and not jumping every day just because the province comes up with a new announcement that it's okay to do this or it's okay to do that. Doesn't mean that we'll necessarily do it, but it's interesting to learn. But we usually learn at the same time that you do, so it doesn't give us a lot of time to respond. So we're making our own plans based on what we think is safe and what we think is going to be allow people to enjoy themselves. And we'll be able to do more if you all wear masks. So yes, we're going to move on to Councillor Sabag telling us a little bit about what it's like working as a nurse during this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With your authorization, and before I start, just a few words. I want to remind everybody that HEMA Quebec is holding on June 1st a blood donor clinic in our gymnasium. That's going to be on June 1st, and that's by appointment only. You can call 1-800-343-7264 to take an appointment and give blood. It's so important these days to be able to give blood, especially during the pandemic, where they could easily see the levels go much lower than regular months. So the mayor asked me to say a few words on what it's like, and I could tell you that it's been a humbling experience for me to be on the front lines. I've started this about 2 months ago when things started to get really hectic, and as some of you know, I'm working at the CHUM, so it's the French hospital, a division of the French hospital at the Hôtel Dieu, which is a 350-year-old building that was reactivated because of COVID-19. So what we're doing in this particular hospital, which houses a COVID clinic, a COVID floor, which is a hot floor. Some people are waiting relocation. And part of the whole intention of the hospital is to just make sure that we can kind of deflate a little bit some of the pressure on the main hospital. And that's a tactic that the government has been using for a while. So what does that mean on the day-to-day is that this 350-year-old hospital has been reactivated as a full-blown hospital. And we take care of hundreds of patients a day on 7th floor. People that nurses that have been called in from retirement, nurses like me that are in the private sector. We have nursing students that came back that were actually couldn't graduate, unfortunately, that are coming back as orderlies. So it's a wonderful experience to just be part of this team and to deal with something that we didn't expect to deal with. There's no question, based on the patients that we see, that this is still very much active. And as much as we start this phase of deconfinement, people of Quebec and especially the people of Côte Saint-Luc should remember that this is not over. It's not at all over, and we have to do what we can to continue reducing some of the stressors on the hospitals, and that's what's going to ultimately help. It's going to help us get less people infected, and it's going to help our healthcare system not be overwhelmed. So I know the mayor mentioned that already a couple of times, but I'm a strong believer that washing your hands is the number one and most the central priority everybody should have. If you do that regularly, you're going to be in better shape than even wearing a mask, because you will touch your eyes, you will touch your nose at certain times of the day, and if something is on your hands, you will allow the virus to come in. So I'm just saying, if we wash our hands and we do that regularly, there's going to be a lot less chances of infection. On my end, I could tell you that I'm going to continue doing this for as long as the hospital needs it. I work on weekends mostly, night shift. So I just finished this morning at 8 o'clock. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm a bit tired. But I do think that this is a wonderful hospital, and certainly going to help the overall situation in Quebec. And so I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to email me or call me. But I do want to reiterate the fact that on June 1st, if you're able to give blood, now's the time to do it.
Thank you, Councillor Sabag. So we're going to move to the next item on the agenda. Item number 2, Councillor Burku.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make an announcement before I pass the notice of motion. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. Since this is a special council meeting dedicated to COVID-related issues, I would like to announce that on Wednesday, May 27th, that's 2 days from now, and Thursday, May 28th, the DSP, the Département de Santé Publique, will be setting up their mobile testing buses open to all residents and healthcare workers or caregivers who may want to be tested. They are going to be setting up the buses at Trudeau parking lot on Mackle in corner Ashkelon, right on the street in front of the synagogue. And it's open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily. And again, I repeat that this is open to all residents who may have been exposed to COVID. So I'm thinking in particular of some of the residents who are acting as private caregivers who are going to and from Maimonides Hospital. There are also healthcare workers that may want to be tested more than they've already been tested, and the general public who feels that they have had either exposure or have some concerns about their symptoms. So the buses are going to be there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily in Trudeau Park parking lot, May 27th and May 28th. And I could tell you that the DSP has been very cooperative, and I want to thank them for making the changes that they made today, because originally they couldn't find a location at Côte Saint-Luc, and so they moved it to an NDG location. And then, of course, when we saw this, we wanted to repatriate it back into Côte Saint-Luc. So we spent most of the day, Tanya and myself, the city manager and the mayor, of course, trying to repatriate these 2 buses. And finally, we got the go-ahead from the DSP and from the CUS, from Dr. Rosenberg as well, the collaboration of all parties concerned, that we would have the testing mobile units, the mobile testing units in Trudeau parking lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank Councillor Burku, first of all, on all the work she's done on that and everything to do with Maimonides Hospital. She's been working very diligently. The biggest problem we have, you're going to notice, Côte Saint-Luc was doing well. We were like ranked third, we went to the fifth. Now we're ranking back up at third again. But the reason why our numbers are going high is because Maimonides is not in a very good situation right now. We know there's at least 60 to 70 active cases in Maimonides hospital and too many deaths. So it's a tough situation, and we're hoping that with the testing center, we'll be able to identify more individuals that may be coming and going from that institution that shouldn't be, because maybe they're positive. I know they've been testing the staff now, and we're trying to work together and do everything we can to improve that very bad situation.
And I want to emphasize that our M&A, David Birnbaum, and our MP, Anthony Housefather, and yourself have been meeting with the families and friends of Maimonides and have been exercising their best efforts in order to bring in the extra staffing, be it the Army, which eventually might have to come in to support the staff at the Maimonides, or working on the other issues which have been very, very serious over the past month since the first outbreak started in mid-April. And we're just hoping and praying that we're going to come through with this. But for the families and friends of Maimonides, it's been a very difficult period.
But they do have the support of all levels of government, as Dita has said. We're working really hard for all of you, and a big thank you to Anthony Housefather, David Birnbaum, and you too, Councillor Burku, for all your great work.
Okay, so that being said, we'll go to the notice of motion to, I'm just going to read the notice of motion. I can read it in French. Avis de motion pour le règlement 2557 à être intitulé règlement 2557 instituant des mesures de sécurité temporaire en raison du virus COVID-19 sur le territoire de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc. Alors, il est résolu et attendu que la ville souhaite imposer certaines mesures de santé et sécurité temporaire afin de continuer la protection du public. Moi-même, j'ai donné avis de motion la semaine dernière que le règlement pour instituer des mesures de sécurité temporaire en raison du virus COVID-19 sur le territoire sera présenté à une séance ultérieure pour adoption. Et je mentionne aussi que l'objet et la portée du règlement à être intitulé, je répète, règlement 2557 instituant des mesures de sécurité temporaire en raison du virus COVID-19 sur le territoire de Côte Saint-Luc sera effectivement déposé, et je dépose par les présentes le projet de règlement 2557 relié aux mesures de sécurité temporaire du virus COVID-19 sur le territoire de Côte Saint-Luc. So just to repeat that very briefly in English, I've given the second notice of motion that the bylaw will be adopted on June 1st, which is next Monday night, 8 o'clock, and that it's now been deposited. The bylaw has been deposited and is going to be available on our website as in the detail in which we have worked on it. That deposited bylaw is available on our website, and I'm just reading here. If you go to our website, it's you can click on Côte Saint-Luc Council to table draft bylaw making face coverings mandatory at municipal buildings and stores. Briefly, to just cover the areas that this bylaw covers, it's going to require face coverings at all municipal buildings and inside stores, and also require hand sanitizers at apartment buildings and condominiums, as well as signage indicating that masks be worn in elevators and common areas. When it's adopted on June 1st, the bylaw would affect the following changes. In apartment buildings and condos, owners of apartment buildings and condos will have to make available hand sanitizers at the entrance of their buildings and inside or outside the elevator, and also place them at all entrances to the building, and also post the posters the Quebec government called Information aux propriétaires et aux locataires d'immeubles à logement multiple. The second thing is the store owners. The store owners or managers cannot allow a customer inside their store who isn't wearing a face covering. The stores must also implement a program following the guidance of the document coming from the Quebec government. So again, we're just implementing what is recommended by the Institut National de Santé Publique. And the third thing is that all visitors must wear a face covering at all times inside municipal buildings, and they will not be allowed access to municipal buildings if they're not wearing the face covering. The bylaw will come into force on June 1st, but there will be a delay to implement the various measures. The obligation to wear a mask will come into force on June 1st for all those who are entering civic buildings. There'll be 2 weeks of grace period for merchants to get up to speed on the distribution of masks before a penalty or a fine is instituted. And there'll be 1 month for the apartment buildings and condos to set up their hand washing equipment. At the same time, we're going to roll out a program to distribute masks, both disposable and reusable, to the public, and that's going to we're going to make that program available very soon. And also, we are going to add a grace. I don't think there's anything else. I think someone just come into the room. I apologize. I'm in the middle of a meeting now. No. Sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, so I think I've given the summary, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So you did your notice of motion and tabling of the draft bylaw.
Just one clarification. I believe Councillor Burke who stated it, but I'm just going to restate it. The notice of motion given tonight was specific to tonight's bylaw. So for tonight's bylaw, there's only one notice of motion given, the one that you gave tonight, and you did that valid.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
The table, and she did the tabling, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I tabled it.
So
Yes.
if there are any more questions on it or ideas on our bylaw in terms of improving it in any way with the objective of reducing transmission and protecting our most vulnerable, we really would appreciate anybody sending us emails, suggestions as to what they may suggest. We're certainly looking at doing whatever we can. We'd love to. There was one other question that I did note. There were 2 other questions I noted afterwards that were on the back of the page, and they said that they agree with all the mandatory parts of the motion. I think the recommended parts don't go far enough and should also be mandatory. I personally agree fully. I got 2 of those. But we're gonna have to wait to see if Mr. Legault decides to do that. And my prediction is eventually he will, because we don't have the police force or the ability to enforce all these things on every single person walking around in our community. But of course, that's my personal opinion. I think that if it was up to me alone, I would make this mandatory, but we don't have the resources to enforce it. So we're doing what we can. Councillor Burke?
Add, because there was an interruption. I didn't read all my notes. I just want to say that I want to advise the public that every single member of this council has spent hours, literally hours, reviewing this bylaw and trying to make it as reasonable and as enforceable and and as applicable to our experience here in Côte Saint-Luc. And our legal team has done research. We've looked at California, Germany, CDC in the United States, Quebec, the Canadian Health Authority rules to put together a bylaw that is reasonable and can be enforced in our civic buildings and in commerces. And I think that we really have taken the time. All of us have taken the time and, modified, made certain amendments, made modifications, because we've really thought of all the angles. And I think that it's going to apply, and it's only enforced until the end of August. And then we'll see, as we approach the end of August, if we have to renew that bylaw.
So that's the legal part. Now we're going to go into the resolution to strongly recommend certain measures related to COVID-19. And we're going to read that in English and French. We're going to ask Councillor Sabag to move it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to be reading the resolution regarding the wearing of face covering.
By Councillor Ben-Isri.
Oh, sorry, we're starting with
By Councillor Ben-Isri, and then you'll read it in English.
Okay, go ahead.
Councillor in French. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Merci.
Attendu que les résidents de Côte Saint-Luc devraient porter des couvre-visages dans tous les espaces publics sur son territoire afin d'éviter davantage la propagation du virus Covid-19, puisque les mesures de distanciation physique ne sont pas possibles dans certaines situations telles que en marchant sur les passages inférieurs piétonniers sur le boulevard Cavendish, l'avenue Westminster et Côte Saint-Luc Road. En attendant à un arrêt d'autobus, lorsqu'on croise une autre personne sur le trottoir d'une rue occupée avec un espace limité comme le boulevard Cavendish, en attendant en ligne à l'extérieur de l'entrée d'un établissement commercial avec une entrée à niveau de la rue et en attendant à l'intersection pour traverser la rue. Il est résolu que tous les résidents de Côte Saint-Luc portent un couvre-visage dans les espaces publics sur son territoire et respectent les instructions suivantes concernant le port de couvre-visage. Toujours porter un couvre-visage lorsque la distanciation physique est difficile ou impossible. Toujours porter un couvre-visage sur le transport en commun, autobus ou métro. Toujours porter un couvre-visage dans un taxi ou un Uber. Pratiquer l'hygiène des mains avant de mettre le couvre-visage et après l'avoir retiré. Éviter de toucher le couvre-visage lorsqu'il est porté. Disposer adéquatement d'un couvre-visage dès qu'il est humide ou souillé. Éviter de laisser traîner les couvre-visages sur des tables ou comptoirs. Remplacer les couvre-visages non médicaux lorsqu'ils sont humides ou souillés. Laver régulièrement les couvre-visages non médicaux et les enfants de moins de 2 ans, les personnes avec des problèmes de santé tels que, mais sans illimité, des difficultés respiratoires, des troubles cognitifs, difficultés à entendre ou les personnes incapables de retirer leur couvre-visage sans l'aide d'une autre personne ne devraient pas le porter. Que rien dans la présente résolution n'abroge ou déroge à la mise en œuvre des autres mesures essentielles et préventives liées au virus Covid-19, telles que lavage fréquent des mains et le respect méticuleux des règles de distanciation physique.
Councillor Sabac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll be reading the English version of the resolution regarding the wearing of face covering in public spaces on the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc due to COVID-19. I'm going to read just one whereas people with mild or no symptoms can contribute to the spread of COVID-19 virus, and face coverings may reduce the risk of infection or infected person unknowingly transmitting the COVID-19 virus to others. Whereas the residents of Côte Saint-Luc should wear face coverings in all public spaces and its territory to further avoid the spread of COVID-19 virus, as physical distancing measures are not possible in certain situations, such as when walking through the underpass on Cavendish Boulevard, Westminster Avenue, and Côte Saint-Luc Road, when waiting at a bus stop, when crossing another person on the sidewalk of a busy street with limited space, such as Cavendish Boulevard, when waiting in line to enter commercial establishment with a street level entrance, and when waiting at the intersection to cross a street. Be it resolved that the residents of Côte Saint-Luc wear face coverings in all public spaces on its territory and respect the following instructions related to the wearing of face coverings. Always wear a face covering where physical distancing is difficult or not possible. Always wear a face covering when taking public transit, bus, or metro. Always wear a face covering when taking a taxi or Uber. Practice hand hygiene before putting the face covering on and after removing it. Avoid touching your face covering when it is being worn. Properly dispose of medical face coverings once they are humid or dirty. Avoid placing used face coverings on table and counters. Replace non-medical face coverings when they are humid or dirty. Regularly wash non-medical face coverings, and children under the age of 2 years, people with health issues such as, but not limited to, respiratory difficulties, cognitive difficulties, difficulty in hearing, or people who need help to remove their face covering should not wear them. That nothing in this resolution should abrogate or derogate from implementing other essential COVID-19 related preventive measures, such as frequent hand washing and meticulous obeying the rules of physical distancing.
That was a move by Councillor Sabag and second by Councillor Ben-Israel. And I'd like to just highlight, if we take note of why and when to wear face coverings when it's outside, and we give examples of when walking through an underpass. We have 3 of those. When waiting at a bus stop, and when crossing another person on a busy street with limited space, such as Cavendish Boulevard, or when waiting in line to enter a commercial establishment, or when waiting at an intersection to cross the street. If you're going to have to do it in all those circumstances, you need to wear it all the time, because you don't know when you're going to be in one of those circumstances. Everybody that goes out for a walk either goes under an underpass or enters an intersection or crosses people that are sitting and waiting at a bus stop, or they're waiting in line to get into a store. Just wear your face covering. And then our seniors will feel safe and they'll be safer. Any other comments from the other councillors? Councillor Torchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to clarify again, just for the public, our resolution doesn't force you to wear a mask outside. We're only recommending you wear one if you can't be a safe distance from others. So it's to protect all of our residents as well as yourself, when you are in situations where you can't practice social distancing. But there's no obligation to do it, and we're just simply recommending it. And I also want to be clear, we're not going to be asking anybody for medical notes if they're not wearing a mask. Now for our still draft bylaw, it's there to protect people in buildings and condos as well as local businesses and our staff in our public buildings. We're giving the tools to the building owners and condo associations so that the residents entering and exiting the buildings can do so in a safer environment. We're asking that they have hand washing stations. There's no obligation to wear the masks, but we are recommending, obviously, if you're going into an elevator and you can't be socially distant in an elevator, that you wear a mask both for your safety and for the other people's safety. We're giving the tools to local businesses in order to protect our residents so that they can shop safely and without heightened concerns. Washing your hands prior to going in and out of an elevator or going into a business will protect you, and wearing a mask in the confines of a store will also protect other residents that are shopping at our local businesses and also the staff of those businesses. Juste un petit mot en français pour dire que nous donnons les outils aux propriétaires des immeubles et des associations de condos afin que nos résidents puissent rentrer et sortir des immeubles dans un environnement plus sécuritaire. Nous donnons également des outils aux entreprises locaux afin de protéger nos résidents, afin qu'ils puissent faire leurs achats et en toute sécurité, sans inquiétude élevée. Se laver les mains avant de rentrer ou de sortir d'un ascenseur ou de rentrer dans une entreprise vous protégera, et le port d'un masque dedans un magasin protégera aussi les autres citoyens qui fréquentent ces entreprises et le staff de ces entreprises locaux. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Councillor Italy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a few words on this motion and on the bylaw. I understand that there are some people out there who will probably think we've gone too far, and there's some people out there who will think we haven't gone far enough. What I believe is the council has spent a lot of time, and we've discussed this extensively, and I hope that we have found that perfect medium. I know that as we are still in the early phases of this pandemic, there are some who think we've gone too far, but of course, in the future, in a year or two from now, there'll be some who think, oh, we should have gone farther. But I hope that by putting these measures in place, it will encourage those who are venturing out, going to stores, and not able to maintain that physical distance, not able to maintain that distance of 2 meters, that they do wear a mask, that they do take these extra precautions, and hopefully that will keep our residents safe. Côte Saint-Luc in the beginning of this pandemic was #1 in terms of cases per capita, #1 in the province of Quebec, #1 in the country. Now, because of the vigilance of our residents, we have been able to lower the numbers, or at least lower our rank with respect to the other with respect to other cities and boroughs on the island. However, as the mayor alluded to, the last few weeks, the numbers have taken a turn for the worse. Part of it is because of the large increase in the number of cases at Maimonides. But my concern is also that as things get warmer, as it's nicer outside, people will venture out more. People will forget some of what they've done, forget some of the rules, and we don't want to see that second wave. We know that there will be. History has shown us from previous pandemics that there will be a second and possibly a third wave. But my hope is that by people following this resolution, by people following the rules in this bylaw, we will minimize the impact of a second wave and hopefully keep our residents safe and healthy, and so that they may have a long and healthy life. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have made it a habit in the last couple of weeks. With the weather is nice and it's not raining out, I am taking a walk throughout my entire district. And that includes east of Cavendish, the District 8 that I am now doing with Councillor Torchman until a by-election is held. And I would like to say that I see a lot of residents wearing masks, practicing social distancing. But I see a lot of them wearing masks, not covering their noses, stopping to talk to me from 6 feet. And I put my hand up like this when they come too close. And they're touching their masks, which is wrong. They're not following Mr. Arruda's advice. So I think by what we are doing today, we are underlining an important issue that hopefully will remind people to look into this more and to see how important it is. I see, again, I want to thank the people in our community who are following the social distancing. And like Councillor Erdely said, this is not over. We really have to worry about a second wave. And for anybody in our community who is not taking this seriously, maybe what we're doing today can be a wake-up call. And I know there'll be more news to come in the coming days with other measures we're going to take and we're going to announce. A lot of people have asked me about the dog run, about the pools, and I know that our staff are working very hard and diligently to come back to us with very good recommendations, and we hopefully will have some information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Berku.
Second. Alors, je voulais juste annoncer parce que je pense que les élus ont oublié de l'annoncer, c'est le bon moment de le faire, que David Torchman et Mike Cohn vont recevoir ou vont participer à un town hall. It's going to be on June 3rd at 7:15 for districts 2, 6, and 8, right? And if all goes well, then the other councillors in the city are going to do the same. We're going to follow suit so that we're going to have an opportunity in a more informal setting to talk about all these issues and maybe to have some demonstrations, or can give us some demonstrations on how to put on a face mask, how to put on a shield, how to protect oneself. I think these town halls are going to be a good opportunity for us to have a dialogue with the public. And a lot of issues are going to come up as the deconfinement progresses and we lift restrictions. We're going to have issues around the pool, around the different activities. We're going to make announcements this week about which activities are going to be open and how we're going to open them. So I appreciate that initiative, and I look forward to having these town halls going forward. Thank you.
And I will be at all of them. I'm a guest speaker talking about, guess what? COVID-19. Okay, any other comments? All right. So I'm just going to leave by saying thank you to everyone for all your hard work. I know our staff has been working very diligently on this bylaw, on the situation in Maimonides, on the situation with respect to all the reopening plans. Every director has presented their brief in terms of the way they wish to reopen their departments and activities in the city. It's all being presented to council tomorrow evening. We'll work all the time now. Our council is available by Zoom and we meet regularly several times a week. I'm meeting with everybody every day, 7 days a week. It's quite the weekend, but these are special times and I'm counting, as I said. Je compte sur vous. C'est chacun de vous qui peut faire les bonnes choses pour tout le monde. Et on va être en bonne santé à cause des actions qu'on va faire chacun de nous. So it's up to us and we're going to work together to make sure that we have a good summer and that we hopefully don't have a very bad second or third wave of this virus. It was hard to bring the numbers down, but we've done what we could, and now it's up to each one of us to keep it going. I was very disappointed when I took a drive yesterday and I was passing by what's called the Thames. It's on Park Avenue, and there were thousands of young adults in their late teens and early 20s playing Frisbee and listening to different music at this weekly event that happens at that park, Jean Mars. And there was no social distancing. It was if the pandemic was over. And if that continues, in 14 days, we'll see the results. But it's up to us here in Côte Saint-Luc to make sure we can do what we can do in our city. So we're hoping that all mayors and all the provincial leadership and the federal leadership, together, we send a message, and that each one of you, every Montrealer, every Quebecer, every Canadian, does their part. So counting on you. Thank you all. I'll call for did we vote on the resolution? It was moved and seconded. I don't think we voted. All in favor? Carried. Move for adjournment. Move for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
So
Torton,
moved, Mr. Mayor.
Tikajowski, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great evening.